What is up, guys? We are about to finish November. Today, I'm coming at you with a mini episode, or again, I always say they start out as a mini and then it turns into like a 60-minute rant. But hopefully this episode will just be a mini one for you about a topic that no one really talks about. It's hard to quantify. And this is the time of year, though, when people are updating, switching brands, changing things in their business. And that is wonderful. But this is also the time when many people are giving up. So I know that intro is kind of cryptic and kind of confusing, but it's always kind of fun to talk about the topic in a weird way and then see how we're going to get into it. And obviously, I mean, you already know what the topic is because like you press play based on the thing that it says. It says momentum. So today we're talking about momentum, and that is not something you're going to see on an Instagram feed. That is not something you're going to see at a Rising Tide Society event or any kind of communication talk or anything like that. We're talking about momentum. It's this thing that we can't quantify. And so there's this foreign term, and it's not as flashy as Facebook ads or a new camera, and it's not as flashy as a K next to your name. It's not as flashy as even joining a new workshop or joining mentorship. It's just not flashy, but it's something I've been paying attention to for the past few years. And when running a business, it's super important. And I think it's something too that, again, we have a few of these episodes that are just kind of the end of the year vibes and episodes, and I think they're important. So have you ever heard the story of the man who wanted to swim across the Atlantic Ocean from New York City to Britain and Great Britain? Sorry for my British friends. And he wanted to swim from the US to Europe. And the story goes is that he trained and started to swim across. Like the day finally came and he was going to swim. And he got tired when he was halfway there, exactly halfway. And then he decided just to swim back to the US. And it's kind of a silly joke and kind of a silly like parable. But the reality is that he swam the same distance that he would have swam. Is that he swam halfway there and halfway back, and two halves make a whole. Like, he technically swam the length he'd need to meet the goal, but his perspective and his desire made it so that he wouldn't accomplish his goal. And so I know that sounds really kind of weird and kind of intrinsic, but he swam the length that he was expected to swim. He physically could do it, but his perspective and his desire made it so that he didn't accomplish his goal. And so that's super important when we're talking about momentum. And I know we're going to dive in a little bit weird, but it's kind of weird. So like he could have swam the length that he needed to, right? That's an easy thing to do. And so not everything in business is that easy. But the truth and the practicality of these things is that you are always much closer to your goal than you realize. Even if you're halfway, it's almost like the first half is filled with, it's more dense of things that you've done. You could say, I started an LLC, I started a new bank account, I shot 100 clients, I've delivered 1 million photos, I've done all these things. And it still doesn't feel like you're close to your goal, even if you're halfway, but you've made so much progress. And so something that I think about when it comes to momentum, and these are kind of practical examples or situations that may apply, is not booking enough clients for the next year. In wedding photography, we often talk about how we are booking for the following year. The decisions we made this year and how well we did this year will ultimately translate to what next year looks like. And so this time of year is crucial for us in the industry because if it doesn't feel like we're booking enough clients and we don't have the data to know when we should expect them and when we shouldn't expect them, we can get scared and we can make decisions out of scarcity, and that can be really bad. And so you'll be ready to abandon ship, and it can be really, really scary. So one word of note, and I know I shout out little episodes, but honestly, people join and listen in every week who are new, and they don't know there's lots of value in the other episodes. I wouldn't even say the older episodes, the other episodes. So Beer to Talk number 30, Why You're Not Booking and What to Do, is a super good episode for just making sure you have the right criteria to know what to do when you're not booking. That'll be really, really good. Another practical example of people who are trying to get momentum in a certain field or a certain area of your business, you're trying to level something up, is maybe you haven't reached a social media goal. Maybe you're trying to get to 1,000 followers, 2,000 followers, or maybe finally hitting that 10K mark, which I am trying to get to so bad. But it's not a big deal. It's just a goal. And that is something too where, again, momentum, like you're closer to there than if you quit, right? Another one is redesigning your website when you're doing it yourself and desiring to make everything right. And the reality here is, like we always talk about, like done is better than perfect. And so ultimately, it may take too long to really get where you want. And that is not fun at all. And if you don't really have the momentum of just getting things done and finishing and accomplishing goals, it's going to be tough. Another example is trying to achieve like a new zero, like getting 3 or 6 months or a whole year of income saved up in the bank. That is a really big practical example of you being so much closer than you realize. But if you stop, you just lose all momentum. It's really difficult to restart after quitting. I know so many people that say, I used to run a photography business and then I kind of got out of it because of XYZ. And now I'm trying to get back into it and it's really hard. And I'm like, yeah, if you had kept going, if you had kept posting or sharing or shooting or working, like you would be so much further along. And that's with anything in life. I mean, whether you're playing an instrument or you're pursuing a career, the idea of momentum is just continuing to keep going. All of those examples we talked about are super valid. And there are countless more that I'm sure people will email me about. But here's the deal. Anything worth doing is, one, super hard, usually. Like, not fun all the time. It can be moderately fun, but not fun all the time. And then two, anything worth doing just takes time. There's few decisions in life other than breathing that don't take time that are worth doing, if that makes sense. It will definitely take longer in business and in your craft, but whatever it is, it's just not going to feel easy for a long time. I've shot over 150 weddings now, and when I show up to a wedding, only recently do I not feel that nervous. And I even do a lot of work to not be nervous on the wedding day. Like, we talk a lot. I know exactly what's happening. I know everybody's names, and not just the couple. Like, I know all their family members' names, and I do that so that I can be prepared and ready to go in. And it's taken years for me to not be nervous about it. I started playing guitar when I was 11 years old, and at first, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, right? It was difficult to play. I had no idea how to play it. I held the guitar wrong. It was not an easy thing for me. I had to think about every single note, every single piece of this one bigger thing, and I couldn't get in the groove, and it felt like I was going so slow, and then like the song becomes unrecognizable, and you can't really see the connections. You can only see like the dots that you're making and the steps that you're making. I was putting piece by piece together, and the result was that it was just not very glamorous. It did not sound good. But later on, I kept practicing, and as you listen to episode 1, like I would end up getting a scholarship for guitar to my college, and it took years of preparation to feel comfortable at my craft and comfortable at the things that I needed to be comfortable at. But I mean, you bet that I could probably play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and even, of course, a lot more. And that's just the idea of that, like, something simple can be tough at the beginning, but you just have to keep going. And momentum is a really big thing. I'm sure somebody who's like a scientist is going to email me and be like, Adam, you should have called this inertia. But momentum is just so valuable in everything we do. So like, here's the deal. Continuing what you're doing now and kind of managing that grind and going for it might seem just difficult as hell. Like, I know lots of photographers right now who are either pregnant and they're still shooting and hustling. Like, my friend Casey is incredible, and she's just going for it, even though she's about to have a kid. And I think there's some beauty in the fact that, like, I think you can still do office work and you can still shoot and like walk around. It's still like really far up versus maybe other jobs that might be more difficult. I don't know the rules on that, but she's killing it. But the truth is that if she is going to stop, and if anybody is going to stop, it's going to be more difficult than picking up the dream again later. And she's got things in place to make things happen. But for other people where that's not the case and we just want to give up, or we want to like make sure we're not going to make it happen, then it's going to be much more tough for us. Here's another practical example, especially this time of year, whether you are new to the creative business, the photography business, or you are seasoned. For me, booking weddings, like when I first started booking weddings back in 2011, I shot my first wedding. And I was still just figuring stuff out, like people would email you, how much do you charge? Like I had no systems or anything, but I would literally like giggle and get excited. And I would just be like high on life every time an email came in from a potential couple or a client. And at the time, I would try to book all of them, no matter what their budget was, no matter where the ceremony was going to be. I traveled all over the country just to shoot weddings, no matter the cost. And even if they wanted to be there for 20 hours, I just didn't care. And so now, having only a handful of weddings will seldom make you be able to do full time, and it will definitely not be easy. But the point is that every wedding or gig is like a link in a chain that keeps connecting to the next thing. Now I've been in this for a long time, and I think about, a wedding that was from a past gig or someone I met at a wedding or from my website. And now I'm shooting those people who knew somebody or referred me, or, they saw an old blog post. Like, we think that we will book, off of our latest blog post or our latest piece of content. But the reality is that we're getting booked on maybe not all of our content, but of like a grouping of our content. Maybe it's the last 15 posts on Instagram. People want to see kind of like the history. Like I was even just asking for a quote for a garage here in DC to have somebody build a garage for us. And I saw a bunch of their before and afters, and I'm not just booking them on the fact that they say they build garages. I'm booking them on the fact that they have been doing this for a while. And so does that make sense? I know that sounds really weird, and we're getting kind of nitty gritty here, but that's the Bearded Hog, and it's what we do. And if you're already listening to the solo episode, then hey, good for you. But now it's taken time, like it's not to brag, but I've shot 150 weddings, and it's so amazing to see just how connected everything is, the referrals, how everything is kind of working and pushing, and we're building. It's like a snowball effect. Like that's literally all I'm describing, is if you try to stop the snowball, you got to start it again, and that's going to suck, honestly. But if you can just keep it going little by little, it will pick up speed, and it will be so much more helpful for you, if that makes sense. So just never stop. You can always adjust which plates you're holding and how long you're holding them, and maybe the size of them. This is a weird metaphor. You can always adjust, and even the speed at what you're doing, the things you're doing, like you can always adjust, but just don't stop what you're doing. Unless you just don't find fulfillment in it, don't stop. I would reevaluate, but don't stop. You can think of it in so many ways. Like people always say, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And that's true. It's so true. The way I thought of things 7 years ago is so much different than how I think of things now. And will I be enough? Will I book enough? Will this client like me? It's hard to think about how one singular client is going to go when you have 100 of them in a year. It's such a different vibe. And, marathon runners aren't going to think about sprinting while they're running the marathon. I like to think of all this too as like preparing like a big meal. I'm just all about examples. And you can't cook everything at once. You have to start one thing, kind of get that going good. You start the turkey, right? Because it's going to take a long time. And then you begin another dish or another task, and you'll find limits in your preferences. But like if you're cooking your Thanksgiving meal, and you just got to keep chaining these things together so that you can get the whole meal or the whole thing that you're trying to do. You'll find your limits and you'll find your preferences, whether that's 100 weddings a year or 20 weddings a year or whatever it is you do. How many clients do you want to take on? I have a web designer friend, takes on 2 clients a month. That's it. But he's able to be so much more full with them, and he charges them a lot of money. And that is really awesome. But you'll find your limits. But if cooking your Thanksgiving meal was too hard, like you wouldn't just stop, would you? Like if you had to make it, you got to make it. You got to just do the thing, and it's going to connect one thing to another. An undone turkey and cold mashed potatoes is my nightmare, and no stuffing, that would be awful. So yeah, we have to just keep going. Just by starting, you're already closer to getting to your goal than you realized. And stopping would be wasteful and detrimental. And honestly, the regret of stopping something is overwhelming. And that is not that fun. So I would say keep going. This is just a reminder for the end of the year. Just keep going. Focus and regroup if you need to, but don't give up or stop. You've got this. I always say this too. If you want, feel free to email me. Always feel free to email me, thebeardedtog@gmail.com, or if you want to get really specific, adam@adammason.com, and check in with me. Feel free to shoot me any email you want. Ask me any questions. And if I can answer, I'll answer. If I can't answer, then we'll try and find a resource who can. Also, too, I would always say join the free Facebook group. There's a link in the show notes. Join the Facebook group. There's lots of people in there. We're all talking about our journey, and we would love to see you in there. And we'll get lots of chatting in there over the holidays, I'm sure, because people are going to be buying cameras. People are going to be talking about different things. And so it'll be really, really cool. Lastly, if you would like to support this ad-free podcast, come hang out over on Patreon. That's where we're kind of getting into the nitty gritty. We're sharing different galleries. I'm about to share my camera settings in there, which are really fun to review. So I'm just going to show you all the settings that I use for my cameras. And it's just going to be really, really, really fun. There's things like a gallery where you can see what clients have received lately. You can see all the blog posts. I'm going to give SEO tips. And so it's really, really fun. And it's how you can support the podcast. $3, $10, nothing more. We keep it super simple for everybody. Would love to see you over there. Hope you guys had a wonderful week, and you guys are just awesome. So thank you guys, and I hope you're considering momentum in how you're running your business. So